February, I went with a friend on a backpacker trip to India. It was triggered by us not knowing what we wanted in life, so everything was pretty spontaneous and radical. We landed in Bangalore and had a good 2 weeks of traveling until we ended up in tourist-riddled Palolem Beach, Goa, at a cheap bungalow. After 2 weeks, we were supposed to check out so we could move on and travel somewhere else. But the night before that, something happened that changed our plans. We were walking on the beach to a so-called silent party where everyone has headphones to listen to music because of noise regulations at night. As usual, I was carrying my guitar with me that I had bought there because it was a good way to strike up conversations with people and just jam. We passed by these two nice Indian guys who started talking to us. No big deal, they just wanted to chat, right? They ended up inviting us to breakfast the next day, coincidentally the same day we were checking out. We agreed because we were already used to talking to strangers, so we didn't think more of it. The next day, we checked out, as planned, and met them. It would just take an hour or something, we thought. Suddenly they point to their car and tell us to get in, so we could drive to their apartment nearby. I found that a bit weird, as I was thinking we would just go eat at a restaurant or something. But my friend had already gotten into the car, so I decided to think no more of it. After a 10-minute drive or something, we arrived into their apartment. When we got there, we noticed two more Indian guys, and the mood quickly changed. We tried socializing with them, but it seemed like they were almost waiting for something. Suddenly, they proposed to us that we could help them smuggle jewelry to Japan, and we would be greatly rewarded. Besides, according to them, it was also a loophole in the regulations, which made it legal. This is where my warning signals went sky high. We said we would rather not participate in this scheme of theirs, and we would rather be on our way. That is when things turned kind of ugly. They got very pissed off and told us we had no choice. Then we had to sign a bunch of papers, give them our signatures, let them take pictures of our passports and credit cards. As we did all of this, a bunch of other Indians also arrived, so we were surrounded and didn't know how the hell we were going to get out of this mess. After a bunch of business stuff and meeting a super creepy guy, Dave Grohl, look-alike, with lots of tattoos and long hair, who seemed to be somewhat in charge of the whole thing, we were put in a car with 3 of them and driven off to a nearby bigger town and checked into a shitty motel near the train tracks. We would never be alone. We could never get out of their sight, and we were pissed scared at this moment. The next day we woke up to a phone who allegedly was Indian Toll Customs, who said they had found jewelry on the way to Japan, and that we needed to give them the appropriate papers as sign of proof of purchase. This was obviously not Indian police, but the guys who held us wanted us to believe it, and they always insisted that this was a legit thing, and the jewelry was real. Oh, and I failed to mention they showed us the real jewelry, made of diamonds and emeralds, and they even let us see them send it. After this, we almost started believing that it was actual police that had called us, and we now thought we were wanted. It's crazy what your mind can do to you when you fear for your life. So now, the guys say that we will be waiting for more people involved in this, who will help us get out of this mess. We are quite scared now, and we propose that maybe we can sit in the restaurant downstairs to be in public. The guys tell us to relax, and 5 minutes later, at least 5 to 6 more guys arrive. One guy has a scar, and another one introduces himself as Max. and that he would help us deal with toll customs. We would later find out that Max was a fucking psychopath and had no regard for his own life at all and would do anything to get what he wanted. At this hotel, we now had to call our banks and try to increase our MasterCard credit limits. And then they would empty our accounts with the card terminal they had brought, probably from one of their fake jewelry companies. I had to go to a nearby internet cafe to log into my net bank. And while I did that, my friend found out that Max was psycho and got threatened by him. He didn't tell me about this until later, though, so I didn't know not to mess with him. When I got back from the cafe, I told him that the bank refused to unlock all of my money because of rules, for a good reason, and Max snapped at me. He stared me right into my soul and told me not to lie to him. That is when I found out that he was a psycho. I repeatedly told him that there was nothing I could do except try to get people from home to wire me more money. Eventually, he let it go, and we could move on. After spending the whole day there, getting our bank accounts emptied, they put us in a taxi they bought or rented or something, and drove us into the jungle in the middle of the night. This is where we thought we would definitely get murdered and dumped into the jungle. We had heard about tourists going missing in Goa, so I even had my shitty dull pocket knife from Toscana opened and ready to defend myself if the worst should happen. After a long drive with 2 different drivers, who apparently had no driving skill at all and almost got us killed twice on the road, we eventually ended up in Mumbai. They drove us to the airport there, and at the first terminal, I had to empty the last of my account and give them the cash right there, surrounded by at least 10 security guards with MP5s. By the way, we didn't want to ask them for help because we legitimately thought there was a chance we were wanted by Indian authorities. As I was going to hand Max the last of my money, I refused and said I didn't want to. This was a bad decision. He just stood there for 5 seconds, staring at me before slowly just filling up with rage. I could see him just fueling up, and that he was going to snap at me. He blurted out a bunch of words at me and threatened that he would slit my throat before charging towards me. Luckily, the other guy who was with us, who was slightly more reasonable and sane, held him back. But a security guard came up to us and asked us if we were okay. It must have been a weird sight for that guard, coming up to me with 100,000 rupees in my hand. 2 Indian guys who looked fucking crazy and looked like they were mafia, and me just being able to talk because of the fright. I really wanted to just end it all there and ask for help, but they had told us they would send us on a plane back home, obviously, so we would not be able to report them. So I decided to tell the guard we were okay. He looked at me with a really weird look and told me my money was supposed to be in my pockets. After this incident, we were told to get into a taxi and drive to the other terminal to get on the plane back home. I felt an urge to just stay there, considering I would be sitting next to a psycho who had just told me he would slit my throat. But my friend was still with me, and I couldn't just leave him, so we got into the taxi and drove to the other terminal. At the other terminal, we took an elevator to a more secluded part of the airport, with not much people, and Max told me to give him the money. I had refused him earlier. I was a bit reluctant, mostly because I was just scared of him now. So he went into rage mode again, before hitting me in the stomach, emptying my pockets and starting to burn the cash. Yes, he was absolutely mental. He said that it was nothing to him and claimed I had offended him by offering him the money right after refusing him it. After the rational guy managed to calm him down again over some time, I ended up giving him the rest of the money, and we managed to get into the terminal and get our tickets. Finally, we were away from those people and had legit tickets back home. We just had to get through the passport check that Max claimed they had bribed for like 500,000 rupees or something. We were still scared of Indian police, and we just wanted to contact police back home. But we managed to get through the check without sweating too much. We took the plane from Mumbai and landed in Abu Dhabi, where we scraped together the last of our money to buy ourselves each our Big Mac. Eating beef after having food poisoning and only eating chicken in India was a big thing and felt very relieving. We took another plane from Abu Dhabi to Brussels and then home on a small propeller airplane. When we landed back home, we contacted the police at the airport, and after that, we have had to be questioned by police for many hours. Whether the bank insurance will cover the losses is still not decided, but I will find out the next few days. We also had to go meet a psychologist several times to find out if we had post-traumatic stress. When I was 15 or so, I was outside swinging. Idgaf, what you think? I loved to swing. There was a storm looming at the time, so the playground was completely empty. So I was swinging la 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 la, and I looked up in the sky. Know what I fucking saw? I saw a fucking flying saucer. Yes, I saw a fucking UFO. I skidded myself to halt and ran out in the field to watch it better. My eyes wasn't fooling me. There was a flying saucer right there. It was about the size of a dime from my vantage point of view. It looked exactly as it did in the 50s sci-fi flicks. It was metallic. It was circular. It had that dome coming out of the bottom center. The only difference between the one I saw and those in the movies was that they didn't fly in a straight line. It was kind of oscillating left and right, kind of surfing through the air. I watched it for a good minute until it disappeared into the clouds. I ran home. My home was only a block away from the playground. I barged into the house and screamed at my dad about what I saw. Fate must have been mocking me at that moment. Do you know why? At that moment, there was an episode of that 70s show running. It was that episode where Kelso swore that he saw a UFO and convinced everybody to watch the sky with him. At the end, he found out it was only some plane lights, or something like that. My father looked at me for a moment. Then he looked at the episode for a moment. Then he just lost it. He laughed hysterically in my face. I didn't know what to think or do at the moment. I knew how ridiculous this whole thing looked. Then I just lost it. I laughed out loud. I spent the next hour trying to convince my dad that I actually saw a UFO. I really did. I'm not saying that I saw aliens or anything like that. I just know I saw a UFO. It wasn't a fucking weather balloon. I'm dead serious. To this day, I still tell this story to people. Nobody have ever really believed me. I posted this in the I could never could do this again, even if I tried a million times, AskReddit thread. But here it goes. I have no proof of this happening, so whenever I tell the story, no one believes me. I believe I was 13 years old at the time, so this was approximately 10 years ago. I was fishing off the dock of my parents' beach house. I went to cast and released the fishing line into the air. A seagull was flying by at the exact time, and the hook got attached to the bird. I caught the motherfucking seagull with my fishing rod. I tried to reel the seagull in to remove the hook from its mouth, But the bird was having none of that. It was kinda like flying a kite until I decided to cut the fishing line. When I was about 8 years old, my dad and I were throwing the Nerf Whistler football out in the yard. My dad had quite the arm back in the day, so when we got done throwing around, he decided he wanted to send a laser right in the back of his truck from about 30 yards away. Naturally, I begin to run inside, and Dad accidentally hits me so hard with the Whistler that it has left a permanent dimple in the side of my face. Lucky for me, though, it hit me square in the jaw, where normal dimples usually are. That is probably the source of why people don't believe me, but that shit happened. Hearing that high-pitched whistle coming directly from my face was absolutely terrifying. When I was little, my younger brother and I were always staying with babysitters during the day. This one time, we were with the same babysitter for a few months. As soon as we got to her house, I would hang me and my brother's coat on the coat hangers that were strategically placed right before the basement stairs. My brother was too little to reach the coat hangers, so I would have to hang his for him. Well, one day he got this stubborn idea that he wanted to hang his own coat. I remember being nervous, but I let him try anyway. He picks the hanger that is the closest one possible to the top of the basement stairs. As he is on his tiptoes, struggling to reach the hanger, he all of a sudden falls over and down the basement stairs. The babysitter heard him crying, then accused me of pushing my baby brother down the stairs. She told my mom about it later. To this day, no one believes me that I didn't do it. I would never hurt my little brother. I was in São Paulo, Brazil, on a business trip. The night before departure, I wanted a drink, but the lounge of the hotel was closed for a private party. I didn't want to go out of the building alone at that time, so I started talking to one of the private guards. Then this lady came closer and asked if there are problems. I explained her I was hoping to get a drink, but didn't want to bother. She started talking in a very good English. I can speak enough Portuguese to get by, but I'm definitely not fluent. And explained me it was a party after a wedding. She was older than me, probably late 40s, but very good looking. She asked me if I wanted to join her upstairs for a drink, and she brought me to her room. We spent 30 minutes banging on every possible surface until she told me she had to go back to the lounge. I asked her why the hurry, and she told me she was the mother of the bride. I felt like in a MasterCard advert. On the way to visit a friend, my husband and I got lost on a highway in Pennsylvania. By some weird chance, my husband's friend drives past us in the opposite direction. We see him and turn around to catch up to him. Finally pulling over, we are standing on the side of the road, 2-lane highway, discussing the directions to the friend's house. Surrounding us are farms with corn and other various crops. Out of nowhere, a duck appears on the opposite side of the road. He is looking at us curiously while we are talking. We watch him look both ways and waddle across the road to where we are standing. Cars are honking at him as they attempt to drive past. He gets over to my husband, pecks at his shoe once, and then promptly walks back across the street, dodging cars traveling at highway speed. He made it back across the street and disappeared into the crops. He risked his life to peck my husband's shoe and simply waddled out of our lives. When I was in elementary school, my brother and I were walking home from school after it had rained all day. He started reaching his hand in all the puddles. I asked him what he was doing. Sometimes there's money in these. 3 or 4 puddles later, he pulled out a $20 bill. Not sure if he ganked it from somewhere else and planted it, or it was legit. Either way, I now check puddles for treasures when there are no witnesses. I got a call from a police officer telling me if I didn't pay some old fines within a week, he would come arrest me. The total was $267.63. It was about 2 weeks before Christmas, so I was really sweating it. The very next day, I got a check in the mail for $267.63 for overpaid child support throughout the year. Craziest, most unexplainable thing I've ever had happen to me.